What's up, my family? Listen, first-time listener, or you've been here the whole damn time. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, giddy up, let's go, no notes.
That's my baby.
That's my baby.
We're going at it at 110%.
I just want 5 minutes of happiness, please. Just give me 5 minutes.
And they scored! They did it!
Slap.
What the hell was that? Oh, yeah!
What the f*** are you talking about?
All right, let's go. Let's go, baby. Not only is it Red October, and let me remind you, okay, we got the 08 banner right here, okay? Not only is it, and I just messed it up. I just knocked it down. This is live. You know it's real. There you go. Oops, did I mess it up again? All right, there you go. This is what I get for doing some props. But anyway, not only is it Red October, and I'm going to give you a PHL. No, PHI. No. I was going to do that, but I wasn't going to do that either. All right. So we got Phillies hunter for Red October here. We have the Eagles at 4-0. It does have kind of a feel for last year, doesn't it? We know how last year went. Eagles went to the Super Bowl. Rob, what's up, my man? Phillies went to the World Series. Now, the only difference that we need starting today, we got to all get locked in right now. Okay. By the way, Rob Ellis Show, A2D Radio, and I need you to pound the like, subscribe, do everything that you can do to get more eyeballs on the show and on the channel in general. But what we need to do is lock ourselves in right now so we don't have similar finishes. Yes, we're happy that they got to the Super Bowl. We're happy they got to the World Series, and they got this close. 3 points away, game 6. This time, we need to finish the job, all right? We need to finish the job, people. So we need to all get on the same mindset here collectively and be ready to roll, okay? Ready to roll. I was talking to my man Ralph a little bit earlier. The only hard thing about today was the wait till the game, man. Because if you're, I think we're all the same, right? If you're watching me, we are like-minded, man. We are sports fans. We are dying for this. And, think about every pitch counts. That's the thing about playoff baseball is every pitch counts and you're in on every little thing, every piece of strategy, every pitch, every swing of the bat, all the strategy. It is white knuckle, but it's the best kind of white knuckle. So we have that. We have an Eagles team right now that's 4-0. The fan base is about to go take over Los Angeles again, like they always do. So it is a great time. I agree with Rob. It's a great time of year to be a Philadelphia sports fan. Look, it's always a great time of year to be a sports fan, but it's especially a great time right now because you have two teams that are absolutely rolling. A little later, I will talk some Sixers. Not as great a time to be a fan of a team, which we'll get into in a little bit. But a lot of ground to cover today. Mention the Phillies taking on the Marlins. I know a lot of people are afraid of this series with Miami, and I know they beat the Phillies 7 out of 13 times this year, and they've typically had the Phillies number. I think 4 out of the last 5 years they've won the season series. I get it. But this is not the same Phillies team. And frankly, it's not the same Marlins team. I am not as afraid as a lot of other people. In fact, I think the Phillies are going to be fine in this series. I really do. And I'm never one to look ahead. I'm not telling you it's going to be completely easy. I don't think so because, let's face it, there's some question marks with Aaron Nola, with the Phillies bullpen, etc. But I feel really good about game 1. I love having Zach Wheeler on the mound. I think he will be laser focused. I think he will deliver. The other thing to keep your eye on in this series, we remember how insane it was, Bedlam at the Bank, right, last year. It affected Spencer Strider. I know Spencer Strider wasn't all the way healthy, but it affected him. And I think it affects young pitchers. And I think you could see that with the Marlins starters. I think you could see it with some guys coming out of the Marlins bullpen who are used to that, very kind of quiet, staid atmosphere in Miami. Not to say they haven't pitched on the road. They have. But they haven't seen anything like this, like they're about to see in Philadelphia, where it's going to be absolute insanity. So I am very excited for this series. So let's dig into it. So look, a couple things that are key here, as far as I'm concerned. Marlins are going to throw a lot of lefties at the Phillies. First 2 starting pitchers are left-handed. The bullpen is heavy left-handed. So therein lies some of the challenge for the right-handed hitters. Now, obviously for Schwarber and Harper, they're playing every day no matter what. So that's not even a question. But So as far as the Phillies righties, the approach that I want to see is work these guys. Work them. Don't swing from your heels. I need to see Nick Castellanos stay disciplined. Don't chase the low and outside pitch. I need to see Real Muto not roll over, on a pitch and hit into a double play. I need to see the righties take the right approach. I think a couple things are going to be really fascinating. I expect Trey Turner to have a huge series. I think he's going to come out and he's going to play the way that he played after he got the ovation. I truly believe that. I think you're going to see peak Trey Turner. I think what you're going to see from Bryce Harper, he lives for this stuff. These kind of moments are like air for him. So I think you're going to see big-time Harper. The question is, Real Muto at home, where his splits are dramatically different at home than the road. He's a way better road hitter. So he's going to be a key to this thing. The guy I just brought up, Castellanos, is going to be a key to this thing for sure. I think Schwarber's going to provide the power, but I'm also looking at some of the younger guys. Bryson Stott, Alec Boehm. And the beauty is their game plays to the postseason. They're not afraid to hit with 2 strikes. They will work a count. They will use all fields. I think those guys are going to be really big in this series. I would watch it. If you're asking me right now, from a hitting standpoint, the guys who we're going to come away in this series after the Phillies beat the Marlins and say, wow, they were awesome. I think it's the young cats. I think it's Stott. I think it's Boehm. And you could throw somebody else in there like a Rojas or a Pache if they decide to go that route with him. We know Rob Thompson is big on the matchup lefty-righty. So left field's going to be interesting. I think Rojas absolutely gets the start in center. I would be okay if he went with Marsh, even though Marsh's numbers aren't great against lefties. I just feel like having played in the postseason last year is an advantage. So I'd be fine with that. My gut's telling me it's probably Pache in left field. That would just be my guess. So I think that's going to be the key. Some of the younger guys, of course, your vets, you're going to be looking for them to deliver, but I think the younger guys. Now, I think what this series comes down to, it's really twofold. What do you get from Aaron Nola in game 2? Like, I feel like Wheeler game 1 is going to give you 7, give up 2. And it's going to be exactly what the doctor ordered. You're not crushing your bullpen. You're not dipping into Suarez out of the bullpen because I want Suarez available if there is a game 3. And it's simplifying things for the back end. And I'll get to the bullpen in a second. But I think Wheeler's going to be good. I think Suarez is going to be good. I know he didn't finish the season necessarily great, but I think he's built for this kind of stuff too. He is a, flatliner as far as the heart rate goes. No moments too big, kind of chill dude. And I think that plays well in this setting. But I know Alex Coffey from the Inquirer said that Aaron Nola made an adjustment and it's really helped him in his last 2 starts, and he pitched very well in his last 2 starts. And he's very well rested, right? Which is also a great advantage of taking care of your business in enough time to let everybody just get some downtime. But he's the key to this thing. If you get good Aaron Nola to go with Wheeler and what I think you're going to get out of Suarez, this team is going to make a deep run. They will. They absolutely will. If you get bad Nola, it hurts you so many different ways. A, it hurts your chances of winning, which is the biggest thing. But B, on top of that, you start destroying your bullpen. You start really going to these guys early, and then it becomes a domino effect as the games move on. So I think Nola, number 1. Now let's go to the bullpen. The other good thing is Kimbrel got a lot of rest. I think Kimbrel's issues were, even though the Phillies would never admit this, Kimbrel would never admit this. I think his issues were he ran out of gas. He simply hit the wall. Look, he hasn't thrown this many pitches in a long time. He hasn't been put in the sort of stressful, high leverage situations in a very long time. And for most of the year, maybe 3/4 of the year, he responded in a great, great way. And he looked like old school Craig Kimbrel. But as the season went on and we got deep into this thing, into the dog days, I think the wear and tear affected him. So how much does having that time off get him back to the guy that we thought he was going to be? I think a couple things. One, I would try to, as much as possible, use him in save situations. He doesn't seem to pitch as well in non-save situations. The other thing that I would do with him is, and I know Rob Thompson's going to do this. Let me put it to you that way. They're in a situation. I'll just give you a hypothetical. So Wheeler goes 7 tonight. Phillies are up 3-1 or Phillies are up 4-2. Wheeler goes 7. We go into the 8th. And Miami's got 3 righties coming up, for example. Then I do think you see Kimbrel in a sort of hold role in the 8th inning. Because Thompson is really big on the righty-lefty thing, and it works both ways. So that's what I think they'll do. And then I think Alvarado closes. I think it's going to be some combination of Kimbrel and Alvarado closing. What's going to also be really fascinating here, do they trust Jeff Hoffman enough to use him in high leverage? I'm talking like, runners on first and third, 1 out, bottom of the 8th, Phillies clinging to a 1-run lead. That's going to be interesting to see what they do there. The other one is Orion Kettering, the young kid who's only had a few appearances in the major leagues. And Rob Thompson has said we trust him in high leverage situations. I just wonder, and I hope the moment isn't too big for him. That's a lot. That's a lot thrown on somebody's plate. That's the other one to keep your eye on, is how much trust do they have in him? That will also tell you how much trust they have the other way. And Sir Anthony Dominguez and Gregory Soto, and some of those other guys who maybe haven't been great in the back end. I'll just tell you this. I don't have any trust in Sir Anthony. I have zero trust in Gregory Soto. Those guys concern me in a big, big way. So I would be willing, and this is crazy since it's the playoffs, but I'd be willing to roll the dice a little bit on some of the younger guys and or Hoffman in those spots. But that's the way I think it's going to play out. If you get good Phillies bullpen, if you remember, when the Phillies started off the season, they weren't great. We tend to forget about it because they went on a run and, finished with 90 wins, but it was very similar to last year where they started slowly. And the bats weren't there. Remember, Harper was out of the lineup. Turner was in a big time funk. You had other guys who just really weren't pulling their weight. The bullpen really carried them. And that's the thing. Like, to me, if I look at this and I see that team, if I see that similar ability to get guys out of the pen in the postseason, ooh, look out. I mean, I will tell you this. I think the Phillies bullpen, just from a talent standpoint, again, that's on paper because they have struggled towards the end of the season, but is way better than last year's bullpen. Alvarado was pitching better last year than he has this year, but Sir Anthony wasn't great. You're talking about David Robertson and some of those other guys that you were just sort of winging prayer, hoping kind of thing. There's more talent there. There's more options for Rob Thompson. Nonetheless, here's the thing about this Florida team. We know they can pitch. We know they're not afraid of the Phillies. That we know there's a lot of familiarity on both sides, really, of this. But simply put, I'll take the Phillies all day lineup-wise. This lineup, other than Atlanta, is nasty to deal with. You don't have a lot of easy outs. 1 through 9. I mean, up and down the order. Schwarber, and as much as it drives people nuts, his ability to hit a home run and just flip a game like that with that home run is huge. Turner, with the way that he's played over since August 4th, okay, which has been amazing if you look at the splits before August 4th and after. Harper, Castellanos, the kind of year that he has had, which has been a really good year. Bohm and Stott and Real Muto. There isn't even, Rojas has really surprised us with the way that he's hit. I think the Phillies would tell you they're surprised. So there aren't any easy outs here. The biggest thing is going to be for this team is the pitching. Let me throw one more intangible in there that I think is enormous for this team. The fact that they had the experience last year with going deep, being down in games. Just take it back to the St. Louis series, the first game. They're trailing going into the 9th, right? And they showed you the ability to come back and win that game, and it really flipped the entire playoff run on its ear. I think the experience factor, I think the noise factor in Citizens Bank Park really, really is a game changer that other teams can't emulate. Like, if this was flipped around, and it's not, the Phillies, if it's a 3-game series, they play all 3 here against the Marlins. But if it was the other way around, I've been to Miami's ballpark. It's a really nice place. I feel like I'm walking around in the King of Prussia Mall. That's what it feels like. It would be like if the King of Prussia Mall and a library combined. It's super quiet. Super clean, super nice, but it doesn't feel like you're at a baseball stadium or a ballpark. It is a big, big difference. The Phillies will win this series. I don't sweat it. I'm looking for it. Tom, let's go. Okay, let's go. We got to get on board here. We got to get everybody fired up and get on the red train. Okay, that's what we need to do. I think the Phillies take care of business here. I think the big boys will do what they're accustomed to doing. I think the young kids, as I said, are going to have to step up. And you know what? I'm going to go on record. I'm going to tell you right now, I think you get a good Nola in game 2. I'm feeling it. I think you get good Nola too. I think Wheeler comes out and deals tonight. And I think the Phillies are going to be in good shape. And I can't wait to hear that place tonight. I mean, last year was so special and so different. And now what you're doing is, Tom, you're exactly right. You're dropping the Marlins into a blender that's already started. That's what you're doing. And they're going to be like, what the hell just hit me here? The Braves didn't know what hit them. The Padres didn't know what hit them. Even the Astros, who were a much better team, were like, this is crazy. That kind of crowd is what got Trey Turner here. And other guys want to play here because of that crowd. All right. Whew, we're just getting started. We'll get to the Eagles. But we had to come out of the chute with some Phillies to get you set for the playoffs. So let's get a quick timeout. Let's come back. We'll start delving into the Eagles as well. I'll circle this whole thing back and give you my full-blown predictions here for what I think the Phillies do the entirety of the postseason. We'll get into all that. Don't go anywhere. You are attuned to the Rob Ellis Show, A2D Radio. Right back.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
As I said, we got to make that happen, man. I got to get out there. I need some of that for the man cave. Tom, I'm telling you, I get goosebumps feeding off of you guys, man. I get goosebumps feeding off the entire Delaware Valley. I'm walking down the street. I was taking the dog for a walk, and I'm already seeing. This reminded me, I swear to God, of 2001 with the Sixers. I'm seeing the Phillies flags hanging out of the cars. I'm seeing everybody with the red on the lawn. I'm seeing kids getting off the school bus and they're all in their little Harper jerseys and whatnot. That's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about. All right, let me give you the Phillies lineup. I'll get into the birds in 1 second, but Phillies starting lineup game 1. Schwarber, DH. Turner, shortstop. Bohm, third. Harper, cleanup, first base, which means this is a much better defensive lineup, by the way, and it should be that way every single day if Harper feels good. Real Muto, 5, catching. Castellanos, 6 in right field. Bryson Stott, 7 at second. This is the interesting one. All right, Christian Pache gets the start in left field. That's interesting. And then Johan Rojas in center field batting 9th. That's a hell of an outfield defense. The left and center can cover a lot of ground, and I will give Castellanos props. He's improved greatly as an outfielder, and we saw it last year in big spots. He made a lot of big plays. That's a pretty stout defense, man. With the way Bohm's improved at third base, Harper, to his credit, having never played the position before, has done a nice job adapting to first base. And then, with Turner at shortstop, that's the other thing. This team is way better defensively than they were last year. Better lineup, better defensively, better bullpen. Nola the key. Nola the key here in game 2 for the Phillies against the Marlins, for the Phillies against anybody for that matter in the postseason. Greg wants to jump in. This is interesting. Hates Pache in left field. Marsh has to play. It's not even game time, and I'm already pissed off. All right, here's what, Greg, I'm with you. And I said earlier, I would have started Marsh even against the left-hander in left field. You don't lose much defensively. Pache is probably a slight upgrade. You don't lose much defensively, and I think Marsh has a little bit of a clutch gene. But Rob Thompson is a guy who he's big on the splits. And Marsh's numbers against lefties this year, not great. All right, speaking of that, before I get off the Phillies, I need our A2D question of the day, question of the show. And I want each and every one of you guys who are watching right now to jump in the chat, okay? Aaron Nola will pitch well in the postseason. Agree or disagree. And by the way, on Twitter or X, you can go to A2D Radio and vote. I already cast my vote, and it's agree. I think he will pitch well in this postseason. I feel like we are going to get good Aaron Nola. Here's the thing. Can Aaron Nola really, can he? Yes. Let me rephrase that. Will Aaron Nola really go out like this? Meaning as a free agent, a potential free agent this year. Mediocre to less than mediocre regular season. And I'm being a little kind there. Does he really want to pitch this way in the postseason? Does his Phillies career end this way? Because if he doesn't pitch well in the postseason, he's not going to be back. Greg agrees. Agree to the poll, though. Big game Knowles will pitch well. I like it. Everybody jump in on that because I'm curious where people stand. I think Greg and I might be in the minority. I think most people are really scared of what they're going to get from Nola, but I feel pretty good, man. If you remember last year, he dealt in Houston to lock it down in the regular season to clinch a playoff spot. He dealt in St. Louis. He was good against Atlanta. It started to come apart in the Padres series, admittedly. He that's where it started to come. Remember his brother got the hit off him? That's when it sort of, he kind of started to fall into some bad patterns there. But look, man, I think this is just going to be a lot of fun. And if you can't get up for this as a sports fan, think about it. I'll just reiterate what I said earlier. You got playoff baseball starting with a team that went to the World Series last year, which is a great advantage. All three of the first three games are here. And you got an Eagles team that's undefeated right now. Like, we've been through enough lean years here as sports fans. And I'm not saying fans aren't excited. They are. It's been great today. It's been like palpable in the Delaware Valley. But damn, man, you got to be absolutely lit up for this. And I think people will be. All right, let's talk some Eagles here. 4-0 start. And here's the impression that I've got from a lot of people this week. Doing the post-game show, just talking to people, social media, doing my other shows. It seems to me like we set such a high bar for this team. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not necessarily a criticism. But we set such a high bar for this team. Okay, Dynasty, this is interesting. He disagrees that Nola will pitch well. Thinks they win despite him, kind of like Cole in 09. Cole had a bad 09. So did Brad Lidge. And they won despite him because a lot of others stepped up, including Pedro, including, Cliff Lee, et cetera. But interesting take on that. But back to what I was saying about the Eagles. I think we set such a high bar that not only do we want them to win, we want it to look a certain way, right? And I am firmly in this camp. It's really hard to win in the NFL. It's really hard to win pretty in the NFL. If you think about it, there's 2 undefeated teams. Out of all the teams, we're only through 4 weeks, there's 2 undefeated. That shows you how hard it is to win, number one. Number two, you are the hunted. You are the hunted. Every single time a team plays you and Kansas City, you are the hunted. You're not the hunter anymore. So you're getting their best. Just go back to last week. Go back to Sunday with Washington. Washington got smoked by Buffalo the week before. Embarrassed, right? Thoroughly just beaten down. You knew you were going to get their best punch. Like, they were going to give you everything that they had. And they did. And you still survived it. Okay, you got Minnesota on 4 days rest. You handled your business. You got Belichick week 1 with the time to prepare. You handled your business. Tampa, I thought, the Eagles, it was never really in doubt. And that doesn't mean everything's perfect. It's not. And that doesn't mean everything looks the way it needs to look when you hit the meat of the schedule, because you got to get better. There's no question about it. The pass defense, I don't know that it improves a ton. I think it can certainly be better. But when you're talking about some of the people that you lost, Epps, CJ, GJ, Avante now with the injury, not to mention Sidney Brown and Justin Evans, you're down a lot of parts in the back end, which means some of these stud receivers like Terry McLaurin, like some of the others that they have faced and will face, are going to get theirs. What's encouraging to me about Sunday is the passing game returned. Jalen Hurts looked the best that he looked all year throwing the ball. because you're going to have to win games by scoring a lot of points. You just are. You have to score a lot of points. It's that simple. It's simply put. And Jack jumps in. I get that, Rob, but some teams are beating others convincingly, like the 49ers and sometimes Cowboys. Our defense needs to start looking like last year. We need to make a trade for a slot corner. All right, so there's interesting stuff, Jack. Let me hit a couple of those things. I agree with you that the Niners have won most of their games pretty handily, and they've looked great. I'm not going to disagree with that. The Cowboys lost. Sorry. They lost to the Cardinals. So that makes my point. As far as making a trade, I agree with you. I think the biggest need on this team isn't even another safety with Reed Blankenship. I think it is a nickel corner. They really miss Avonte Maddox badly. I think what's going to happen is once we get closer to the trade deadline in a few weeks, that's when I think you're going to see them pull the trigger on a deal because it's going to take less to get something in return. But Howie Roseman is the most aggressive GM in football. And I have no doubt in my mind, look, they see what we see. They see it, intimately at practice every day, some of the shortcomings. I think there will be a trade made. I really, really do. But as far as like the whole, winning pretty and all that kind of stuff, I just think that we overestimate. I think we underestimate, how hard it is to win in this league. Like, we think it'll look like last year. It's hard for it to look like last year. Last year was such an exception. It really was. And the other thing is, here's what we overlook about last year. And I get it because it all starts to run together a little bit, right? But if you look back at last year, there were a lot more close games in the regular season than we think. Now, part of it was we were a little bit distracted with the Phillies run, right? That's a little piece of this thing. But go back and think about this, right? So after the loss to Washington week 10, I'll even take it back a week before that. So actually, let me go back to week 5. Eagles won 20-17 to a bad Cardinals team on a last-second field goal. I think it was Dicker, the kicker, who kicked it because Elliott was banged up, right? All right, fast forward a couple weeks. They're in Houston. It's a Thursday night. Now, we're all locked in on the Phillies in the World Series. That game was 29-17, but it was way closer than that. That was an escape. 2 weeks after that, week 11, the Colts at Indy, Sunday. Eagles win 17-16. So my point is, there were a lot of close games there, a lot of non-pretty wins there, a lot of games where I think you would say to yourself, man, like what the heck's happening here? But they won those games. That's my point. And this team is a work in progress. They're a work in progress. We're just getting into October here. So what you're seeing now is not what you're going to be seeing, later in the season when you run into the gauntlet. I think that there's a couple things that are going on right now. I think Jalen and Brian Johnson are still kind of feeling each other out in this role. They're still getting accustomed to one another and what works best. And they're getting used to trying to get it used to and make adjustments to what teams are doing against them. The different looks that they're getting. It's always, boxing's the counterpunch, right? You kind of know what your competitor wants to do. But how do you answer that? How do you respond to what they're doing? Because they're trying to take things away from you. And I think right now, they're not there yet. Like maybe there's some things figured out last week against Washington in the passing game. I think the running game is there if they stay committed to it. So, there isn't a ton that can be taken away. It definitely looks like Jalen is a little bit more hesitant to run this year. He's looking to protect a little bit more than maybe he was in years past where he's a little bit more daring. And I get that. I mean, that's fine. But you do need him to still be a threat. Jack, I'm with you. I think the team is going to look way better mid-season, for sure. Which is only natural when you're a well-coached team and you're a talented team. And I think they are on both fronts. The one thing also, I don't think there's anybody in that organization that's resting on their laurels, if you will. Like I believe me, whether it's Howie, whether it's Nick, whether it's the quarterback, whether it's the veteran leaders, on this team, nobody's satisfied. Nobody's satisfied with the fact that you gave up 31 points against Washington. It took overtime to escape, for lack of a better word. So I get it. I think this team understands that they have to get better in certain areas. Like obviously the pass rush, is starting to, I think, pick up a little bit. Reddick got a sack last week. He could have had a sack and a half. Your D tackles have generated most of your pass rush. But I think as the year goes on, Sweat and Reddick and those guys are going to generate, Brandon Graham are going to generate more for sure. So I'm not worried about that part of it. But I will say, I don't know with your youth and inexperience that you have at safety and how short you are at nickel corner. Like, I don't know how much better that's going to be. I think there's room for improvement. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's going to be considered a great secondary. I mean, right now, the Eagles last year were the best team against the pass, and they're like 27, 28 now. That I don't think it's going to be that dramatic, but I think what you strive for is, in terms of your pass defense, middle of the pack. And what you hope is your defensive line can wreak enough havoc. And if you want to throw Nicholas Morrow in there, who had the game of his life or whatever, but you want to throw him in there. What you hope is that those guys can get enough pressure on the opposing quarterbacks where you're not leaving your defensive backs exposed. That's what you hope. All right, we're going to come back and we'll dig more into the Birds, and we're also going to look ahead to the Rams. We'll get into that game because this game is not going to be as easy as Eagles fans think, okay? This Rams team can throw the ball. Cooper Kupp might be coming back. This will be a challenge, trust me, and it's going to be fascinating to see the takeover from Philadelphia fans in Los Angeles. But we'll do all of that when we come back. Keep the comments flying. Tell me where you are on the agree or disagree on the poll, which is basically Aaron Nola is going to come out and pitch well. Do you agree or disagree? We'll keep that rolling as well. Don't go anywhere. You are tuned into the Rob Ellis Show on A2D Radio.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
I appreciate everybody hanging. I am Rob Ellis, the Rob Ellis Show, A2D Radio. While we're at it in the chat, give me a Phillies prediction. And what I mean by that, I don't necessarily mean, Phillies sweep them in 2 games or anything like that. What I mean by that is, give me a star of the game. Give me who the star of the game is for game 1 for you. I'm going to go Bryson Stott. I'll go Bryson Stott in this game. I think he has a couple clutch hits, makes a big play in the field. I'm going to go Bryson Stott. You give me a name, throw me a name who you think will be the star for game 1. All right, we're talking Eagles and Rams. And look, I look at this game a couple different ways. The Rams have surprised me a little bit in that they've taken some real talent hits the last couple of years. And Marlins are starting a lefty. That is correct. Yes. Jesus Luzardo will start tonight, Jack. But Stott hits lefties very well. I think this game's going to be interesting in that I think Sean McVay is coaching his ass off this year with this team. He's doing a really, really good job. If you look at the contributions they're getting from quote unquote no names, right? Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell and some of these other guys who have really stepped up for them, and they could be getting Cooper Kupp back. I would assume the game plan with Matthew Stafford is, and Kyron Williams is running the ball very well. People may remember him from his days at Notre Dame. I think Stafford's going to get the ball out quick. That's the MO on the Eagles right now. Get rid of it quick. Don't let the pass rush get there. Keep in mind too, Stafford's playing with a bad hip. He got a hip pointer at the end of the game against the Colts, which the Rams lost in overtime to the Colts, or won in overtime, against the Colts. But that's another reason I think they want to try and protect him against the Eagles. I think his backup's Brett Rippon. So if that's the case, the Eagles are in pretty good shape if it ends up going that route. But Stafford's played well. Certainly you're going to be dealing with Aaron Donald. The crazy thing is, if you look at pressures from the D tackle position and look at Jalen Carter's numbers, I mean, they are comparable in terms of pressures with Aaron Donald. It far less snaps too. It's pretty wild. They're a good offensive team, this Rams team. And with the Eagles' defensive issues and some of the defensive struggles, they're definitely going to have their work cut out for them this game. I mean, the last I checked, the spread was 4.5 and the over-under was 50. I like an over in this game. I like the overplay in this game. But yeah, look, there's a lot of different things to look at when you're viewing it through this, this prism with the Rams and the way it may play itself out. And Jack jumps in. Rams have a good run game in Williams and great receivers. Our corners playing too soft. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about the soft play of the corners. Would I like to see a little bit more bump and run? Yeah, I would. But philosophically, organizationally, and this goes above Sean Desai and it went above Jonathan Gannon last year. They are dead set against giving up the big play. They would much rather keep the receivers in front of them. So I don't know that you're necessarily going to get your wish in terms of the Eagles, getting up and doing some press coverage. I don't think that's going to be the case. I would like to see more of it. I'd like to see them mix in a little bit more. They did blitz a little bit more last week. I think there's a little bit more aggression with the side than maybe there was with Gannon, but there's no question about it. There were some breakdowns. Like, I don't think Slay played great in the game last week. Slay's got to be better than he was. So it's not just the young guys. And I'm not a huge fan. I told you guys this a couple weeks back. I don't love Bradbury in the slot. I get it. I think there's a physicality, element to him in the slot, but these receivers are going to present some problems here. Puka's got a lot of similarities to Cooper Kupp. He clearly, soaked in everything that he saw from him in the OTAs and in training camp before Kupp went down. And he's a 5th round pick out of BYU. Kupp, I think, was a 3rd round pick, but these guys weren't exactly household names coming out of college, but McVay has really coached them up and they've done a very, very good job for them in the early going here. So that the Eagles are going to be presented with a challenge. I think the Eagles will be able to score. I think kind of finding your sea legs a little bit last week in the passing game, knowing you have Swift there in the running game, add some diversity to this offense. I will say this, AJ Brown obviously went crazy last week. I thought Devontae had a very good game too. Got sort of overshadowed a little bit because AJ was so good. They have to figure out a way to get Dallas Goedert going. And I don't really know exactly what this is, with them right now. I mean, it's been such a slow start for them this year. It's such a slow start for him. You look at his stats for the season. This is hard to believe, really, when we're talking about somebody as talented as Goddard. But Goddard's got 13 catches for 88 yards. That's 6.8 yards per catch. I mean, that's something they need to unlock here to make this offense, more diversified. And again, there's a lot of talent. I think Jalen saw the field better last week, and that's good. And I think it was a game where Washington was trying to take the run away. And remember, Washington has 2 really good defensive tackles, Allen and Payne. And they were looking to take the run game away. And that's fine. Like, I don't care how you do it. Like, I didn't have an issue when the Eagles ran for 200 yards against the Vikings or 200 yards against Tampa, and maybe the passing game wasn't great. I don't care. Just win. So if this week is the same thing where Aaron Donald and the Rams are looking to just take the running game away, and you can torch them through the air, torch them through the air. But if they're doing the same thing like, the Patriots did, where they're not going to give Jalen a lot of looks downfield and the running game's the key, that's fine too. That's fine too. And I'm also willing to have some allowance here for Johnson. I thought it was interesting. Nick Sirianni was on the WIP morning show. And if you remember the 3rd and 11 call to Gainwell, which I hated that play call, slow developing. Yeah, I agree, Jack. It does go a long way. Know how these teams are playing us right now. Exactly right. It was a 3rd and 11 sort of slow developing run play to Kenneth Gainwell. All right. So first of all, I didn't love the run there, period, with needing 11 yards. I especially don't want to give it to Kenny Gainwell. Give it to Swift, who's your best running back. If you're going to do it, like, if you're thinking of it in terms of 4-down territory, okay. What's up, Brian Daly? I see you, brother. Appreciate you chiming in, checking in. I like the emoji there. That's cool. I like your little avatar. If you're going to run that play, I would rather have Swift run it and get me, say, 9, and all of a sudden I'm in a 4th and 2 or, a 4th and 1.5. I would prefer that. I just didn't like that play call. The other thing is, as far as play calling goes, the touchdown, and it's going to sound so counterintuitive to say this, but you'll almost always take a touchdown. But late in the game in that situation, I think the Eagles very easily could have just run the ball, run the clock out, and brought in your money kicker to finish it off. And Washington never gets the ball back. Think the way the Tampa Bay game ended. 9 minutes, 22 seconds, just took the air out of the ball. You could have done the same thing. Now, can I really fault Jalen for throwing a touchdown pass to A.J. Brown? It's hard to argue that. I mean, you would hope that your defense would be able to step up and not let Washington go right down all the way down the field and score with 2 seconds left. Yes, you would hope all that. But that wasn't the case. If you had just said to Jalen in his headset, we are running the ball here. No checkdowns, no audibles, no nothing. We're running the ball. Then I think you end that game. I think these are the things that fortunately you got away with in a win. Didn't bite you in the rear end, but will bite you down the line. So learn from it. That's all you ask. Look, anything in life, right? You make a mistake. What should it do? You should learn from it, and it should make you better. Mistakes happen. Everybody's going to make mistakes. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake. We all do. But just get better from it. And that's what I'm hoping the Eagles will handle their time management a little bit better. I just didn't think it was great. I thought some of the play selection was questionable, but Sirianni overrode Brian Johnson on that run play. He said it himself. Now, I don't know. Maybe he's just falling on the sword for Brian Johnson, whatever. But I thought that was interesting that he said that it was his call. So it's not a situation where I'm going to be faulting, Brian Johnson on that. I think he's doing a solid job, but I don't think it's all the way there. I think the other thing that we're learning is Shane Steichen was a pretty good play caller and a pretty good offensive coordinator. He's doing a lot with a little. He's got that Colts team at 2-2. They had a tough one last week to the Rams, lost in overtime, but he's doing a nice job. And I'll tell you what, if there's a division that you want to be in, it's the AFC South, man. Well, you can make a case for the NFC South too, but to me, it's the AFC South. That thing is wide open. I mean, you have the Colts at 2-2, Texans at 2-2, Jags at 2-2, Tennessee at 2-2. And I would say Jacksonville's underachieving, the Houston Texans overachieving, Colts overachieving, and the Titans are middling to underachieving. So it's there, and DeMeco Ryans is doing a great job with Houston also. So, props to both of those guys in their first year. They're doing it with rookie quarterbacks. Not easy. Really not easy. I mean, we've seen some pretty good coaching jobs thus far in the NFL and some bad ones. Let me just real quick just jump around the NFC East a little bit. The game of the week is the Cowboys and the 49ers. There's no question about that. That's Sunday night. That game's going to be fun. If you remember, the Niners eliminated the Cowboys last year in the divisional round. And the Niners have looked pretty unbeatable thus far. I think it's going to be a good game. I think ultimately San Fran wins the game, but that's the one, you got marked on your calendar. That's going to be a lot of fun on Sunday night. Of course, the Eagles are 4:25 out in LA. But other than that, I think the Commanders are okay. I think they're okay. I think Sam Howell showed you a little something last week. He's really only had one total dud, and that was the Buffalo game. So I think Washington's going to be fine. I think they're going to hang around. The Giants are a train wreck. The Giants are a disaster area. Their offensive line is not good enough, and it's banged up. Daniel Jones does not have enough help. If you watch the Monday night game, he got bludgeoned. I give him credit. He's a pretty tough dude. He kept getting up 10 sacks. But they are so Saquon dependent. When Saquon is not there, I'm taking the Niners too in that game. I agree. When Saquon is not there, they are in huge trouble. And go a step further with this for a minute. So the Giants right now off to the 1-3 start. If you look at what they have their next two games, at Miami, coming off a loss, at Buffalo, who's playing unbelievable since their first loss of the season. Giants are going to be 1-5. It's over for the Giants. So that's one less team you have to worry about in the NFC East. Bye-bye, Giants. This is going to be, it's really kind of playing out like chalk, like we thought it was going to in the NFC. Who are the best teams? Eagles undefeated, Niners undefeated, Cowboys 3-1. There is a big drop-off after those three. You tell me. Who's comparable? I mean, Seattle maybe. Okay, I'll buy Seattle in a conversation. Who else? There's nobody else. Detroit's off to a nice start. Detroit's not in the same league with the Eagles or the Niners or the Cowboys. They're absolutely not. Nobody in the South is. There is a big drop-off. So it is playing out similarly to how we thought it was going to play out. All right, let me get my last time out in here. We'll come back. We'll continue with the Eagles talk, the Phillies talk. We'll give you predictions as well. I do want to get into some Sixers because training camp is underway and all the fun and games with Jimmy Harden are about to begin. Strap in, folks. Rob Ellis Show, A2D Radio, right back.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, proudly celebrating 40 years and our new, bigger showroom.
Twice the size and twice the fun.
More pool tables by Olhausen. More dartboard sets, including custom reclaimed backboards. More bar and kitchen stools that can change a room.
And more bars, including pre-built and custom.
Hot tubs, skee ball, shuffleboard, outdoor,
and fun.
Royal Billiard and Recreation, your ultimate game room store. Now located on Bethlehem Pike in Colmar.
All right. What's up, everybody? Appreciate you hanging with me. I am Rob Ellis. Rob Ellis Show. We do it each and every Tuesday, 4 o'clock right here, A2D Radio. Appreciate the love, Jack. Appreciate it. Dynasty, my man Tom, Brian, everybody who has jumped in here in the chat section. Thank you. All right. So I do want to talk some Sixers here. And I get when, there's like Sixers fatigue with a lot of people. And I'm right there with you. I have Sixers fatigue also. But I think it is of note that they're starting training camp out in Colorado. They're training at Colorado State. And they had media day on Monday. And James Harden was not there for media day, but the reports are that he's going to report to camp in Colorado. So here's what I think his end game is. I think the Sixers would prefer that he just stays away. They're not going to say that publicly, but I think that's what they would prefer. They're going to say all the right things. Hey, we're going to welcome him back. He's a member of the team, blah, 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 blah. They're going to say all the right things, but read through the lines here. Read between the lines. The organization, and I'm talking Morey, I'm talking Nurse, I'm talking Elton Brand, Josh Harris, whomever, would rather he stay away because they know he is going to be up to shenanigans. All right? He's going to be up to something. He's not just going to report and be a good soldier. Now, it may not be as obvious as grabbing a mic and saying Daryl Morey's a liar. It might be a little bit more subtle. But yes. Yes, my man, Marcus. I don't know that the fat suit is broken out. But here's what I think happens with him. I think you're going to get something similar to when Ben Simmons begrudgingly reported to camp for the Sixers a few years back. I think it's going to be very similar to that. Meaning he's going to be mopey. He's going to half-ass it through the drills. Sorry, get some flies. I just opened the windows because it's warm. He's going to be mopey. He's going to half-ass it through drills. He's not going to give you full effort. There may be a lot of convenient hamstrings or sore backs or things that don't necessarily show up on an MRI. I think that's what you're going to get. And what you don't want is for Nick Nurse in his first year, for Joel Embiid, for Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, PJ Tucker, whoever, you don't want them to constantly have to be answering James Harden questions. But the problem is you put yourself in this position as an organization. You did this to yourself. Daryl Morey knows James Harden better than anybody else, other than maybe his family. And you brought him here. You decided to go this route with the contracts. You knew what you would get from this guy. This is who he is. He can't control himself. He can't help himself. So until he's moved, and by the way, I'm all in favor of not giving that little brat exactly what he wants. Like the Clippers aren't interested. I'm not, or aren't willing to give anything up. I'm not just going to give him to the Clippers for nothing. I'm not going to do that. I know that's what he wants, but I don't care what he wants. It's about what's best for the Sixers. So whether that's to the Clippers or whether that's some other team, I would ship his rear end to Siberia if I could get a good haul for him. But the problem is, and this is the thing that I don't think James Harden fully realizes, or his reps, or all his yes people that he surrounds himself with, nobody wants him right now. They don't. They're not interested. They're not interested in him at $36.5 million on the last year of a deal with a scoring skill set that's declining. They also heard his comments after you. Like, if he would have just transitioned into the role of being more of a playmaker distributor like he was last year, where he led the league in assists, and said, yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with playing that role. Then I think teams would be more apt to want him. But he still thinks he's the same guy he was in Houston in terms of the ability to score, and he doesn't have the burst or the lift or the ability to do that. He can sum it up every once in a while, and you saw it in the Celtics series. He gave you 2 games of 40+. It's there sometimes, but that's going to keep going down, right? And his ability to just flat out score like he used to be able to do, that's not there anymore. And it's not coming back. It's going the wrong way, and he doesn't defend. So he's not as attractive to teams as he thinks he is. Do you remember early on, Houston was floated out there? Houston was never interested in him. And I'm not sure the interest level the Clippers had either, for that matter. I mean, you saw what they did. I mean, they made moves, when they had to. Houston right away goes out and gets Van Vliet. So I think we haven't seen the end of Harden and his antics. I think he is going to do things to be disruptive, because what other choice does he have? If he stays away from the team, it's out of sight, out of mind. And he doesn't get his objective to get moved. If he just acts like a good soldier here in camp, which you would think would benefit him with other teams saying, all right, you know what? James is dialed in. He's not in the fat suit. He, as unhappy as he is, he's being a team guy. I'd like to have that guy on my team. You would think that, but that's not the way he's thinking. He's been in, cut off his nose despite his face mode for a while now. So I think it will continue. The annex will continue. I think we're going to see very little of him playing in games, at least early in the season. Again, I think there'll be phantom injuries that are involved. I think that there may be situations where it gets to the point in practice where, I don't know, Nick Nurse maybe has to send him home. Teams only want him for a minimum. It sucks, but it's the truth. Yeah, Jack, I agree with you. And that's why I said earlier in the season, and earlier in the offseason, and nobody really wanted to hear this when I was saying it, he's an addition by subtraction guy. He's a subtraction addition. Get rid of him. You're not going to get much back. Okay. So what? Cut your losses. And he may go somewhere if he finds himself in the right situation, and he might, play well for them. That's all well and good. He's not completely cooked. We all know that. But for your team, I just don't think you're better off with him here. Plain and simple. And Daryl Morey is not a guy. This is good and bad. Daryl Morey's not a guy who's swayed by sort of public sentiment or public pressure or whatever it is that Harden's trying to do as well. He's not swayed by that. He's very steadfast, very, very strong-willed. But there's a downside to that, where I think some of it is a little personal. It's looked like he hasn't had an off-season plan. And it's made him look bad in a lot of ways. And I don't think he likes to be made to look bad. Therefore, I think his asking price is very high, when the reality is teams are not going to give him what he hopes. That's it, plain and simple. So as far as the team, look, you saw the moves that went down, I think, since we last talked. Milwaukee gets Damian Lillard. Boston ends up off of that trade, making sort of a wheel trade, and they get Drew Holiday. Those two teams improved themselves in a big, big way. And you look at this Sixers team that is so, and I know they added, Kelly Oubre and some other pieces, but they have kind of flatlined. To me, they're this, which you got bounced in the second round last year, the year before that, and you didn't make yourself better. So why am I to think now with those two teams, with a team like the Heat, who never really look on paper like they have a ton, but seem to always figure it out. And plus they have Pat Riley, who, will make moves. And then there's the Knicks and the Cavaliers kind of sort of on the climb. There's no reason to get really excited, in my estimation, about this Sixers season. In fact, it's frustrating because you feel like it's sort of the end of what the whole process build was, for sure. All right. So let's circle it back. Let's get a couple of predictions here. I do think the Phillies knock off the Marlins, and I think that they're going to be on a collision course here for the Braves potentially. We'll see what ends up happening. But the thing is, if I am any team in the National League, I don't want any parts of this Phillies team. It's a tough lineup. and it's a brutal place to go on the road and play. You know, I think in general with sports, home field advantage is not what it used to be back in the day. But I think in this case, with this crowd, with the way last year went, I think it is a very, very real thing. I don't see any reason why this Phillies team can't get to the World Series again. I know how good Atlanta was, but I also know how good Atlanta was last year. I know how good Atlanta's been many years when they couldn't get out of the playoffs and get to the World Series. I think the Phillies potentially have their number a little bit in the postseason with the way last year went. Do I worry about Spencer Strider against the Phillies? Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. Do I worry about that lineup? Yeah, a little bit. Do I worry about the Dodgers lineup? Yeah, for sure. Milwaukee has very good pitching, but they don't hit. And I don't love the Marlins team either. I think the Diamondbacks are going to be pesky for somebody, but I think ultimately the Phillies advance past the Marlins, and I think they are a team that will go back to the World Series. Now, as far as the Eagles game goes. So I think it's going to be another game that's close. I just don't know that they're quite there yet defensively in the defensive backfield to be able to blow teams out and beat teams up. I don't know about today, but players of the series, the player of the series will be Turner. I got you. That's a great name. Look, he's been spectacular since the ovation. No other way to put it. He's spectacular. One of the things he said was he loosened his grip on the bat a little bit. He was squeezing the bat a little bit too tight, and that's helped him. But I think confidence goes a long way, whether you're playing Little League or whether you're playing in the major leagues. And I think confidence was huge for him, and it's back. So that's a good choice there, Dynasty. I think this Eagles game is pretty close. I think it's a high-scoring game. The over-unders, it's a big number. It's a big number to get to, but I think they will. Both teams. I think the Eagles are going to give up some strikes in the air. I think Atwell and Puka, and if Cooper Kupp, and I'll tell you, Tyler Higbee's a pretty good tight end. The key to this thing is the key to a lot of these games. It's pressure on Stafford for a couple of reasons. One, that doesn't allow him to throw the ball down the field, doesn't allow him to get the ball out quickly. And also the more hits you get on him, whether it's directly on that hip or if he falls on that hip, he was in a lot of pain last week. There were two circumstances last week where he had a hip pointer and he sort of lost the feeling in the leg a little bit, had some weakness in the leg. So it's not a little thing. That's a big injury. And their backup is not up to the task. So pass rush is going to be big in this one to protect your secondary, but also get to him. As far as the offensive side, look, it's pretty clear. The Eagles have a good defensive line. It's take care of business. Don't let Aaron Donald wreak havoc. And I think Jalen will be able to do his thing. And, we'll see if they get back to – they ran the ball fine last week. It wasn't terrible. But we'll see if they can get back to running the ball well and certainly throwing it. I think that's the key. I like the Eagles to win. I think it's going to be a relatively tight game, high-scoring game. I think it's going to look like that. And then, the following week is the Jets, and then you start to get into the really hard part of the schedule. So I look at these two games sort of like I looked at last week, offensively at least. Just keep growing. Keep getting better at what you're doing here. Keep making the adjustments. And I think what you also need is to continue to see the evolution of Brian Johnson, Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, play calling, rhythm. I think that was one of the really good things about Shane Steichen was when he got into a rhythm, man, he would keep teams off balance. And I don't necessarily see that as much this year, at least through the early going. It feels sort of choppier, if you will. And not to say they haven't had some big plays. Clearly last week they had some big plays. But it's something you would like to see them have that quick strike ability, which I think was so big for them last year where you didn't just have to have the methodical drives. So that's something else that I would be looking for from the Eagles is definitely that. And what you want to see is some improvement in the defensive backfield. I don't think it's going to be perfect. Hopefully you get a couple bodies back with Sidney Brown, Justin Evans, and that allows some improvement. But don't expect it to look as good as it looked last year with CJ, GJ, and Epps, and and some of the other people that you had back there. You were going to take a hit, and that's just what it was. With some of the decisions you made to spend elsewhere on this team. All right, fun as always. Again, I think the Phillies advance past the Marlins. I think the Eagles win in a close, high-scoring game. And we'll be back next week to keep it rolling with you. That's for sure. So looking forward to hanging out with you. And again, the other thing I would say is look out for James Harden because he ain't going down quietly. I will just tell you that. All right. I want to thank Ralph Dell. Great job producing the program. Ralph, appreciate you as always. Tom Arnone and the entire crew who do all the heavy lifting behind the scenes at A2D Radio. You guys are the best. I'll be back with you guys next Tuesday at 4:00. Appreciate you all in the chat, everybody streaming, everybody listening. Looking forward to hanging out with you next week on the Rob Ellis Show on A2D Radio. Go Phils, go Birds.